what would you say that is? It's a blank piece of paper, right? What do you think it's worth? 2 cents, nothing. Yep. It's interesting because this piece of paper is very much like you and me when we're born. It's blank, full of potential. Now this could be the piece of paper that holds the billion-dollar idea. This could be the piece of paper that somebody writes a very important message on that saves their life. This could be something that becomes a business contract or a love letter. It could be a paper airplane. It could be a lot of different things, right? There's a lot of different things you could make out of this unlimited potential. Just the same as how you operate in the world when you're first born. I've got some interesting things to say to you, and there may be parts of you that are not necessarily ready for that, but that's okay, because we have good reasons for being at certain levels for certain stages of time. So I want to acknowledge that wherever you're at, whatever you're considering, whatever your beliefs are, whatever your sense of identity is, it's fine. It doesn't really matter whether you're liberal or conservative, or you drink tea, or you drink coffee, or you use an iPhone or an Android, or if you drink Coke or Pepsi, or if you're red pill, blue pill, purple pill. It doesn't matter. When I say it doesn't matter, I'm not concerned with your constructs of who you think you are. I don't care about what you're trying to make of the world with your thoughts. What I am interested in is what's deeper than that. That leads me to the next thing, which is I want to get connected with the real you. I want you to get connected with the real you. What I'm a big fan of is functional stuff that gets results. And in my opinion, actual magic, real transformation tools are very effective. And the measurement of truth should be their effectiveness. Now, the first thing we're going to start to do here is to assume responsibility, the way to center yourself into the assumption that you are the cause of your experiences and you can leverage change. Why do we have that kind of assumption? It's because that kind of assumption sets you up to have more freedom. It sets you up to have more power. Puts you in the position where if there was somebody who's able to influence something, it's you. All of you guys are heroes. It's not the heroes outside of ourselves on the movie screens and in books or anything that we need to worry about. It's the hero inside of ourselves that we need to get contacted with. So once again, that's why I was kind of bowing to your greatness. I bow to the hero in you. I bow to the part of you that's here for the journey, showing up. That starts with being responsible for yourself, responsible for your path. So let's talk about beliefs. Let's talk about how perception creates your projection of reality and what it means to operate as a creator of your destiny. So we're also going to look at defining what is the difference between creator versus victim mentalities, and also what is the difference between ego versus superconsciousness in terms of how we can orient ourselves in the world. Now these are themes and ideas that you guys are probably going to start to get familiar with. You may have seen these kinds of stuff coming up in multiple talks, multiple speakers, multiple places. Trying to tell you something. These are principles. These are things that are actually embedded in you. They're in nature. They're part of who you are and how you operate in the world. So when you start to pay attention to these things, you probably start to get some benefits. You probably start to understand some things that maybe you didn't understand before. So we're going to start with you. The truth is that you are unlimited potential. You're born unlimited. Now, if we go deeper into that, we see that there's a lot of stuff actually happening in you. You are conscious. You are aware. You are full of potential and resourcefulness. You come out of the box like this. You're intelligent, evolved, alive, thinking, feeling, acting. You have a physical self, a mental self, an emotional self, and what we could call an I am, an I that is. Now, like I said, this stuff's out of the box. You don't have to do anything to get this. You can give credit to the 16.4 billion years of evolution that came before you. So, pretty cool that kind of what you are and how you show up in the world is already here. It's like it's built in by virtue of the fact of all the attempts that nature's had against unlimited odds, basically, to try and work out how to survive, how to make sense of this chaos. And in terms of the planet here now, you're the best attempt this planet's come up with. You're the most multidimensional, free-thinking, and highly intelligent being on this planet. You have the capacity to imagine and create. In terms of the potentials of what's real, what's possible, where else is it going to be? Do you think it's out in the future somewhere? Where? Is it in the past somewhere? Did you lose it? It's always here, right? Because we have to be here. There's nowhere else to be. Now, that's not the complete story, of course, is it? We grow up, we get conditioned into certain things, we get conditioned into what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, how to be good children, how to do the right thing, how to not do the wrong thing, how to basically do what we should be doing according to the rules around us. Which if we look, which is an interesting time to be alive now, we can see that who's making up these rules? Where do they come from? You know, if I go and hang out with an Amazonian tribe, which I have, it's a very different reality to hanging out in Melbourne with my mates. Different rules, different context. Start to recognize conditioning is a big part of who we are, and it's functional. We need to condition ourselves to fit into the world. We need to learn how to have a self that knows what to do. Because if we're just hanging out as unlimited potential all the time, it's awesome, but then what? So we've got to learn how to fit in, how to have something that works for us. So what we do is we have to be moved into some kind of ego. Now, it's an interesting process that happens here, and it's a bit of a deep concept, but part of the way that we develop an ego is we have to go through trauma. And when I say we go through trauma is we come out into the world like this beautiful little piece of unlimited innocence and potential, and then, you know, we get kind of shaped into various little things, and we get, you know, made to basically fit a more comfortable kind of size. It doesn't bother anybody. We just dumb ourselves down. Now, some of the ways that those things happen is, for example, the child is just being free, right? Who can relate when they were young that they used to be very expressive and loud and do whatever they wanted? Anybody ever draw on walls? Anybody ever make a mess and didn't give a shit about it, or break some toys and be like, yeah, whatever? Yeah. That's what boys do. It's one of the things that boys like to do. Because we're trying to find ourselves, express who we are, how we fit in, what's real for us, what's our limits, and how does this world work? That's what we're trying to understand. I'm conscious, but what is this? Now, as we do that and we explore, then what do we come up against? We come up against the boundary conditions of the rules. We come up against the boundary conditions of authority. You know, if we're lucky, we have nice parents and nice people around us and they love us and they kind of take care of us, but oftentimes it's not what happens. What happens is we come up against the boundary conditions of somebody else that has a lot of things going on in their life, and they just want to put us into place because that's easy, it's convenient, that's what they should do to us, right? Now, what does that do to a small child when an adult comes along and says, stop that, you little shit? And how dare you? What do you think you're doing? And this little vulnerable self's like, what? Now we have to make a decision in that moment. How do we relate to that kind of experience? And how overbearing is that energy? How much does it affect us? Now, part of the things that happen is we have this very common traumatic response. Now, some common things that happen to us is we have either a flight response, as in we get really scared and we're like, oh, I've got to get away from here. We have a freeze, which is similar to a flight. And then the fight is the kind of fuck you, like the rebel inside of us. And sometimes we have varying degrees of this. I'm not saying you're either one or the other, but I'm saying pay attention to these patterns inside of you because they're really big keys. And there's something very interesting as well, because these wounds that we experience for various reasons start to create a kind of a tension of something inside of our nervous system that is so overwhelming for us when we're young that we have to hide it away from ourselves. So you can see in some weird way, it's almost like the thing that traumatizes us is actually the key to what is our strength in another weird way. So you have to come to terms with this at some point, that your wounds are actually your teachers in disguise. Your wounds are your masters. And in some ways there's an aspect of you that, even though it feels like it's working against you, I could call it the adversary, the part of you that's like your secret self that's working against you to sabotage you in different ways. Your adversary is actually your teacher in disguise. So what you're starting to do is make friends with the adversary. You're starting to realize, like, this thing is maybe something useful that I can work with. Now, the sabotage part of ourselves is always working out new ways. And part of our job is to work out new ways to be tricky in return. We need to learn how to recover the parts of ourselves that we have forgotten, that we have denied, that we have repressed. We need to give them love and attention and healing and presence so that they can start to become part of the whole again. So we need to recognize this trauma wounding response that's taking place, this conditioning that sets up this kind of way of orienting ourselves in the world. And also looking at like the ways in which we commonly confront difficulty. And the interesting thing that's happening here is there's a tension inside of us that's always playing out. Now, once again, this is kind of deep in the game stuff, but your unconscious mind is always trying to find harmony between itself and the world. And one of the ways that it does that is it has to make checks and balances against its experience of the world. So like I said, depending on what your conditioning is, depending on the opportunities you've had exposure to, depending on how much power you've received in your life. I mean, maybe you're really lucky and you just grew up in a world where it was like you're always validated and always worthy and always given lots of good things. And then you're going to have a lot of feelings of good enough, a lot of feelings of strength and like, yeah, I'm cool, I like myself, I'm ready to do whatever I need to do. I've got permission to be here. Maybe you grew up in an environment that didn't have that. Maybe there was competitions, maybe there was other kids in the world, or maybe there was poverty, or maybe you had traumatized parents or mentally ill parents or whatever. And then you have negative experiences which tend to be interpreted from a young mind as unworthiness. So we take these experiences on, we don't understand why, and then of course we believe, I must be shit, I must be bad, I must have something wrong with me. Now our unconscious mind's trying to work out, how do I make sense of this stuff? And as I said here, so the self-image seeks to preserve itself and perpetuate its desire of its own image. And in many ways, the self-image doesn't care if it's good or bad. It just wants to perpetuate what it knows, because whatever works. Maybe it works that you're a victim. Maybe it works that you're unworthy. Maybe it works that you're make yourself sick and can't do the things you really want to do. Because that's a protection mechanism. Does it really work? It works to a point, and maybe it worked in the past, but is that something that you want to keep doing, especially when you start to realize you're actually a creator? So that's what I'm trying to teach you guys today, is whatever you showed up with, I don't care. Because what you really are and what you're becoming is far beyond whatever your assumptions of who you were in the past were. So there's different things, different interpretations. Self-image can be, negative, it can be positive, it can be all kinds of things. In many ways, the self-image is constantly asking itself, who am I? Now, there's two primary positions that we can choose to reality. The first one, which is probably the most familiar to most people, is the position of victim ego. Now, the victim ego has a tendency to want to protect itself. It comes from the assumption that I'm a little self that's in this dangerous environment of unknown things that could hurt me, so therefore I need to calculate, become sophisticated, learn how to manipulate and control reality around me so that I can be okay. So we get really tricky. We go on a big process of intellectualizing our world to try and safeguard against the future. If only I can prepare. If I know 10 steps ahead what the possibility might be, then I'll be safe. Then I'll be okay. So we get tricky. The dissatisfaction inside of us drives us. It also tends to come from this assumption of I don't have the thing that I need, so I have to do something else to get what I need. And this is one of the biggest traps with things like personal development and spirituality too. It's I'm not really whole, so I need to run around and do 50 million things and then I'll be healed and then I'll be okay. Now, I'm not saying that healing's bad, I'm not saying personal development is bad, I'm not saying that you shouldn't train yourself, but just be very aware of the assumption that you need to constantly be working on yourself and never really giving yourself permission to arrive. So this ego self tends to have a little bit of an error in that arena. Also, it has this thing of it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault, something else's fault. I'm broken because the government, I'm broken because this, that, whatever. Lots of stuff we project onto the world. Because the truth is, we're not very comfortable dealing with our unlimited power. So we try to escape it by pretending it's not our responsibility. But that's a pretty big price to pay for your truth. And when your love for your unlimited power is greater than your love for trying to protect yourself, then you'll realize that. But until you're ready to do that, you'll keep doing what you're doing to protect yourself. You'll keep projecting stuff onto the world to protect you. Now, it tends to also come from an escapist comfort drive. The ego wants to be comfortable. Now, if we lived in a perfect world and you had everything that you needed and all you did was follow your comfort, what do you think you'd end up like? But think about it. In many ways, we do live in a time that's kind of like that. And you think about it, we already kind of have this in our world. I mean, I can click a button on my computer and have thousands of naked women in front of me. I can go to the shop and eat whatever rich carbs I want whenever I feel like it. I can do all kinds of stuff that's just to my ancestors, that would just be like heaven. And I could just consume that all day, every day. But what does it really do to us? We get depleted, we get slow, we get tired, we get fat, we get stupid, we get domesticated, we get retarded basically. We make ourselves slower, a smaller version of what we are. Now, in some ways, that's why we need to recognize comfort is your enemy. I'm not saying not to live with comfort ever, but recognize it's one of the things that is actually a trick of the adversary to keep you in your boundaries. So once again, it's self-centered, it's all about the self, and it seeks validation. The ego seeks validation. If I just get a hot girlfriend, then I'll be good enough. If I just make more money, then I'll be good enough. If I just have big muscles, I'll be good enough. If I get my people to say that I'm awesome, I'll be good enough. Okay, cool. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but as much as you go and seek external validation to try and feel good about yourself, it's fleeting. It doesn't last. It feels good to have a little heroic experience and go out and achieve something and have your mates go, awesome man, you did that thing, that's really cool. And you get a little reward and that's good for your reward circuits, etc. But if you get attached to that as the meaning of yourself, as the meaning of my purpose is to get other people to tell me that I'm good enough, then once again, do you think that's a process for liberation? Where's the power? So part of your gift as a man is to be I'm here, I'm in my wholeness, I can show up in my wholeness, I can be cool with myself, I can be natural with myself. And once again, then you go and offer that to the world, offer that to everybody, really. And once again, get away from this idea that there's only certain people that you should talk to. Once again, a big trap guys only talk to this kind of girl. It's fuck that, just go and talk to people. Just be real. Talk to the weird dude on the corner, Have a fun time with somebody. Don't worry about it. That will set you up that when you see the hot chick, you're going to be normal. You're going to be social. Like, I'm a social, open dude. So once again, this is the ego orientation. So I hope you kind of get this, right? And these are just hooks too. I'm trying to give you reference points to see how these frameworks work inside of you. So after you leave here today, you're like, I see it.
Thank you for watching this Inner Game Tools for Transformation introductory video. If you like this material and you would like to get the full extended version of this video, which goes for well over an hour, all you got to do is click the link below, and I will also include a call with me where we get to personally talk about your situation and discover how we can help you to move you forward and see exactly how these tools can be effective for your personal situation. Plus, I'll give you access to an Inner Game Presence Training audio program, which is very good to help you to be able to balance your mind, your body, and be much more effective at being integrated and liberated in your life. If you're interested in this offer, I'll see you guys on the other side. And until then, this is the Shaman saying peace out and make all your dreams come true.